right? So this MySQL workbench, right? So workbench download, you can see, right? So whichever the operating system you
Excuse
are
me, sir.
using.
One second.
Yeah.
You are not displaying me.
Can you see the screen
Yeah.
now?
Okay. Yes, I can
Right.
see.
So yeah. So MySQL workbench download. Right. So if it is yours is Windows and all, so you can click on that. Okay. A bit. Right.
Okay.
So
Okay.
you get an option. See from MySQL, download MySQL workbench. So this is what you get it. So click on that. Automatically, it will show you the download page. Right. So
Mm-hmm.
here you can see there is an option for download, but make sure which operating system you belongs to, right? So because which OS system you are, whichever OS system you use, based on that you have to download. So click on the download, automatically the download process will start. And it will
Mm.
ask you the instructions, it will tell you the instructions wherein you have to give those instructions accordingly. So once the instruction is done, then automatically this will get installed in your system. Means it
Mm-hmm.
will ask you to ask some permissions to be made to the existing system. That's what usually it will ask us when you are trying to install a software. So
Mm-hmm.
click on that accept and all, so that automatically this will be installed. So what I'm doing is I'm explaining about how this MySQL workbench looks like in today's session. On
Mm-hmm.
Monday, what I'm going to do, I'll instruct. You don't need to do it. I'll instruct. Okay. I will instruct how to do all that. I'll share you the screen first. I'll make you
Mm-hmm.
as presenter. Show me your screen so that I will tell you how to install it. Because if there is any small doubts you have and all, so that it will
Mm.
get corrected because of it. Is it
Okay.
clear to you? Right.
Okay. So, and one thing, sir, we
Hmm.
gonna take all 7 days classes or?
That is your choice because this is a one-on-one session a bit because all 7 days are not possible. It is 5 days a session. It is
5 days.
5 days because today again a session will be on Monday again.
Okay. So
Because
Monday to
weekends
Friday.
are Monday to Friday actually. Because weekends I have workshops from the morning, early morning onwards. I'll start my workshops to be taken. So I'm busy with other
In
workshops.
which for workshop?
I have different workshops. I conduct BA training. I conduct Agile training. Right. So Agile
Oh, okay,
Scrum
okay.
Master BA. Because Radwan has attended business analyst training. Your brother.
Yeah.
Right. So I have couple of trainings in line usually because it's a continuous practice because I get regular inquiries. I conduct some batches as weekday batches and some in weekend batches because we are
Mm-hmm.
not assured, right? So who will come at what? So because some people want only in the weekends. So
Yeah.
batches will be planned for a group of students in the weekend itself. And
Mm.
some people wants to attend the regular sessions. So because
Yes.
training calendar will be released prior to the student,
Mm-hmm.
so based on the training calendar, usually people will come and register and enroll and they'll attend the session. So that I'll be lined up in weekends as well as weekdays, both.
Oh, okay,
So
okay.
your sessions, whatever we have planned as per the discussion we had, is the regular session, which will be taken in the morning, 9:30 of my time, will be for
Mm.
5 days a week.
Okay.
So,
Got it.
or else if you want only 2 days weekend only, or if you want to attend 3 days a week or something like, let me know prior.
No,
Okay,
five
because
days
that
is
is your
enough
choice. Yeah, five
because I
days a
need
week.
more classes because I have to start from the beginning. That's why.
Sorry, I didn't get you.
I need anyhow 5 days of classes because I have to start learn from the beginning.
Hmm.
So it will take time for me. So 5 days is enough for me, Monday to
Hmm.
Friday.
So 5 days a week is what? Because we normally I give two options. One is either weekday session or weekend session.
Mm-hmm.
So weekday session will be from Monday to Friday. Weekend
Mm.
session will be only on Saturday, Sunday. That's it.
Okay.
So this is a weekday sessions I'm taking.
Okay, sir.
Okay, let's get into that. Right. So this is how it is. So that you need to go for Google. Just
Mm.
click on MySQL Workbench so that you get an option where if you can click on, automatically you get the page where you can click on and you can follow the instructions accordingly. Right. So this is how usually this MySQL Workbench and all everything is being used. And of
Mm.
course, this is the major tool which normally we use. This application we use majorly to run this SQL queries and all that stuff. Understood a bit?
Okay.
Right. This is what
Okay.
it was. So as it was already installed, hence I'm not installing it again, because again it fluctuates.
Okay.
Right. Right. So 1 minute. Just give me a second. Right. So that's what it is. So what is that we do? We have already installed that MySQL Workbench. So whatever the installation I did, so that on that I'm working on. Okay. So here there is already I have installed it, MySQL Workbench, which is 8.0 CE. Okay. I'm just giving you a glimpse over this MySQL Workbench is all about. Yeah, this is what generally MySQL Workbench was, right? So whenever you have installed, this is how usually it comes, right? So all these options will come, wherein you have an option where if you want to create a new model or if you want to create a new query tab. So because model can be created at the same time, if you want to create any kind of queries can also be created. That is one thing. At the same time, if you want to create any kind of SQL scripts which was already existed, because this is an application, as I mentioned you, which will be used for us to write some queries, SQL query statements and all. So
Okay.
whenever we are writing query statements, assume that there were already queries which was written by us. Either it could be statements relating to the different part. Either it could be select or it could be open, it could be edit or whatever it is, right? So that can be done. Right, open recent things is what you can see here, right? So whatever the open, the recent ones and all everything we can see. Otherwise, we can open a new query tab and we can work accordingly. Now, what I'm doing is this is for file. And if you want to edit, have any options and all everything. This is all which is used to connect the databases. Means if you want to connect any kind of databases in real environment, wherein we have to provide the database user ID, database host names, all this, and based on that we have to connect. So this I'll be explaining that later. Okay. Now, file, new query tab. Right. So this is how usually this screen of MySQL Workbench looks like. Understood a bit? This is how it is. Now, what is that we do? Whatever the data sets we have created, right? So because we have taken the couple of data sets, you know, right? So as I told you earlier, there are a couple of data sets we have taken, right? So for example, train reservation or future furniture prices, predictions, or gender submissions, or salaries, right? So different data sets we have taken. What we have to do is that we have to upload these data sets here. That is what essentially required. Unless until uploading of data sets and all everything, it is not possible for us to write the statements. Because for what purpose writing of statements is possible? Writing of statements is possible whenever you have some particular data with you. If you don't have a data, you cannot write on it, right? So this is essentially which we have to make it as importance, right? So at the same time, there are some schemas can be created, even different schemas can be created. Whatever the schemas they require and all everything, those schemas can be created here subsequently. Different schemas, different scripts we have to write. Unless until if you are not creating any schemas and all everything, so whatever the scripting you are going to do and all everything is what not possible, right? That's what it is. So schema creations is also essentially required. So when you are working on it, right, different schemas, right? So schemas can be of anything. That is one thing here. Now, when we are going for a model here, so here you can see, right? So this is where generally the schemas and all everything are being used, right? So MySQL physical schema, which is already available here. Now,
What is
if you
schema,
want,
sir?
schema is an option where we have to add all the information. For example,
Okay.
schema is nothing but Like for example, there is some data sets we have taken. So there is a series of information we have taken in reference to the data sets of the Excel sheet. So how
Mm-hmm.
it can be, where we can see all that information we have to see in the sorts of schema, right? Generally, schema is being used for the purposes. Understood? Clear? Understood or not?
Yes, sir.
Right? So schemas and all. Those schemas are the one which are essentially important, right? So at the same time, if you want to create any ER diagram, for example, entity relationship diagrams, right? So whatever the entity relationship diagrams between the database systems we have, so that entity relationship diagrams can be created. So by just creating some tables, right? So all these things can be using this. This is what one thing which we have to do. So apart from that, if you want to create any kind of schemas as separate, where we have to create, yeah, don't say, yeah, yeah. This is what generally it was. The schemas and all everything will be there. Where if you want to create any kind of schemas as separate, you can see here, right? So plus, right? So here you can see create a new schema. For example, for the training purposes, I have just created a schema. I have created a schema for training. Understood a bit, right? So I have
Mm-hmm.
created a schema for training. This is one thing I have created. Now, for example, I have created one more schema, which is called practicals. Because when Monday session onwards, what I'm doing is, first of all,
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you some abbreviations.
Okay.
I'll tell you some abbreviation, jargons, because when you go for an interview or when you are working on, first of all,
Mm-hmm.
what is schema, right? So what is view, right? So there are different things which you should know first, right? So those
Okay.
things, there are basic jargons and terminologies which are essentially required for people who are working on SQL should know first, because it's not directly working on SQL queries and all that. Okay,
Oh,
so
okay.
what is
Okay.
meant by schema? What is meant by query? Right? So there are some jargons, somewhere around 10 to 15 are there. So what are those? First of all, you need to know, right? So because that I'll explain first, then you can do practicals accordingly. Understood clear a bit, right?
Yes, sir.
Understood or not? Right.
Yes, sir.
So yeah, this is where generally. So here you can see there is a MySQL workbench which was already there, where if you want to add tables and all, we can add the tables here. The same way
Mm-hmm.
I have created schema. Two schemas I have created. One is for training and second is for the practicals. Now I'm creating one more schema. SQL learning. Okay. You can create as learning. Right. So yeah. So three schemas I have created. One is for training and second is for practicals and third is for learning. So this is absolutely of our choice that what is that we have to create here. That is essentially required. Where if you want to create any kind of schemas and all everything, this creation of schemas, here you can see all that. Right. So if you want to add the tables, we can add here. Right. So if you want to add any kind of tables and all, tables can be added here. At the same time, if you want to view the tables and all everything, this view that tables can be seen here. At the same time, if you want to add any kind of groups or something like wherein you can add groups, all that. So these are all something essentially important when we are working on it. Okay, so this is where generally this SQL scriptings and all everything will be used here, right? So for example, if you want to add a script, right, as a simple note, I'm saying, of course, we have not added any data so that you don't get anything here. Okay. For example, select is what generally the key I have used, right? Select is the
Mm-hmm.
key which I have used here. So whenever we are clicking on select, usually here you can see, right? So there is a query statement for select which was written. For example, I have mentioned it as open. So we can write scripts here. So when the scripts will be of useful to you, the scripts will be useful when, for example, Hmm. Right. So select, for example, right. So here, if you want to make any kind of changes and all, right, apply changes. So when this select or open or edit queries and all, everything are being used here. So when are these used? For example, select query is what we have selected. So when this is going to be useful to you, This will be useful. Make sure when you have a data set with you. Unless until if
Okay.
you don't have a data, that's what yesterday in the session I have explained you. Unless
Mm-hmm.
until if there is no data was taken, so which is not possible for us to write down these queries for sure. Understood? Clear?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So
Yes, sir.
what we can do if you want to open any script file from the existing one, for example, right? So this is the data sets. Of course, I am not connecting these data sets. Out of interest, I am just showing you. Right? You can see.
Oh,
Understood?
okay.
Right? So
Mm-hmm.
here I have selected it. I have taken the salaries here. Salaries is what the data set I have, which was already copied everything. Understood?
Mm-hmm.
3756 rows.
Mm-hmm.
3756 rows, which was created here. Right. So this is what generally the data set which I have taken. Understood,
Mm.
Abid, right?
Yes. Yes.
Right. So here I have taken all that. Right. Now save the script file. This is for the saving of the script file. Means if you want to create any script file to be saved at all, we can do it. At the same time, yeah, here it is not included. For example, top of the script. Right. So if they want to have any select the forward trap of the script, or if you want to create any kind of DLL files, or before insets and all, these are the instructions which you have to follow accordingly. Whatever
Okay.
the
Okay.
instructions are really required and all everything, so that we have to include it here. So whatever is essentially required, so that has to be included here. At the same time, here you can see whatever the history means, whatever I have did so far in the beginning of the session, which you can see, I have created all this learning, right? So all these things I have created. So the history table can be seen here accordingly. You can see all the history table, whatever is created here. So followed by this, whatever the user types you have, right? So different users types can be created here subsequently. Whatever the user types you have and all everything. So that user types we can edit. For example, user type. Right. So for example, add user type, I can say. As user type is customer ID. Example, customer ID is what we have created. Where if you want to create, you can see customer ID was created. Understand? Clear?
Yes, sir.
Right. So at the same time, you must be knowing about these also. What is meant by integer, right? What is meant by float? What is meant by double? So this also you should know.
Mm-hmm.
These are also required. Understood? For example, uh, user ID, for example, customer ID. User ID is what we have taken. You can say, sorry, user type I have taken. So wherein I have created a user type here. You can see these are the type of users which was added here.
Mm-hmm.
Understood a bit, right? So
Yes.
whatever I'm showing you is a glimpse of it, right? So I'm not going the detailed part of it because first of all, the jargons and terminologies are needed. First of all, what is meant by script, what is meant by integer, right? So what is meant by schema, right? So that is required. So that detailing, if you know, so that it is easy for you to use for what purpose schema is being used. At the same
Mm-hmm.
time, for what purpose scripting is being written by us. So these things and all everything we have to learn first. So that you have to write it. So based on that, whatever the required software we are installing and all, so that can be worked here subsequently. Understood? Clear?
Yes,
Right?
sir.
At the same time, if you want to create any add new schema, for example, there were already two schemas we have created. Okay, three schemas: training, practicals, and learning. And whatever the examples are we doing and whatever are we working on, all these are relating to the schemas relating to the training part. This is a
Okay.
schema. Whatever the work we are doing, this is all relating to the schema of training, not
Mm-hmm.
relating to practicals.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, whatever I am working, whatever the schema I have created under this. If you want to create one more schema, here you have an option. Otherwise, you can over here, you can see add new schema, right? You can see this
Mm-hmm.
option. You can create a schema here. If you want, you can create a schema over here. Right? So here you can create learning process. I'm just writing as process. So see, this is how generally couple of schemas can be created. So this is a schema which was created with training. This is what I have taken here usually. This is what generally the schema which I have taken. Right? So this schema privileges, all this schema privileges had wherein whatever the scripting we want to do, all the scriptings has to be added to this. Whatever the script we have written, you can see here for this schemas, all that. At the same time, if you want to add any kind of groups or something of that sort, or else if you want to create any kind of add users, right? So if you want to add a user here. So for example, username, right? So name of the name. Right. So username, right? So username was created, right? So this is what the username which was created here. Understood, right? So now if you want to add one more user, you can add one more user here along with that. Understood? Clear?
Yes, sir.
Abid, right? So a username
Yes.
was added. So here you can see add user. Who is the user here? You can see username here. Username is already added. Understood? Right now, for example, add role, right? So you want to add role here. Role is a project manager. Manager project. You can see here, role was username, add as a user I have written, add role is a manager project. That's what I have created. Okay, and who is the parent here? For example, is a owner, right? So you can select the parent as a owner here. Owner as a parent, which we have to select. Right? For example, if you want to insert the table, table can be inserted here. If you want to insert any kind of tables and all everything, so that insertion of tables can be done. Or else, for example, if you want to modify the table, right? So you have an option for modify of the table. So whatever you have created, you can see all the scripts here. So this is all, please do remember. And whatever the tables I am adding, whatever the scripts I am adding, everything is belongs to the training schema, not relating to the other schemas. Other schemas I have created. So whatever the work we do and all everything will be belongs to the particular schema first. So once that particular schema is completed, we are going for the next schema, right? So that is depends on the requirement what we have in all everything. So that can be added here, right? So for example, SQL scripting is what? This is what generally the scripting which was added, which was taken into an account. This is what generally the script which we have taken. For example, I am doing some modifications. You can see. This is what the modification which was done. Right. So if you want to do any kind of modifications and all, make sure you need to write down the queries first. Unless until if you are not writing any kind of queries and all, which is not usually possible for us to make any kind of changes. Right. So if you want to make changes, you have to apply changes. So whenever there are some changes to be made, now what we have to do, you have to click on apply changes. For example, MI is what I have taken out. So this apply changes we have to make. Whatever the changes we are making in it, so the apply changes has to be used here. So this is the data which I have taken in reference to the script file itself is concerned. Okay, whatever the script file I have taken, so that script file include along with the script file and all, whatever the necessary information relating to the data sets what I have taken, everything can be seen here accordingly. Understood? Clear? Okay.
Yes, sir.
So this is what it is. At the same time, for example, if you want to create a model, for example, if you want to add a diagram, because sometime back, if you remember, I have told you, right? So for example, if you want to create any kind of diagrams relating to UML diagrams are not usually required here because UML diagrams, we have separate tools for that to do it. For example, add diagram. Okay, ER diagram. Now, if you want to create any ER diagrams here, right? Entity relationship diagrams. Entity relationship diagrams are the one which is majorly used to create different entities. For example, there is a customer. Okay. How you are going to represent the customer? Representing the customer in different ways, based on the customer name, based on the customer ID. Am I right? Based on the customer ID and as well as the customer name. For example, when we are talking about customer role, right? For example, employee. Sorry, not customer. For example, employee, right? On what basis employee classification? For example, employee name. Employee name may be the same one. If you take the database, employee, how you are going to segregate an employee? Employee, you have to segregate in different ways. For example, if you talk about employee name, if you are keeping as a parameter, you get duplications. Why? For example, employee name called Manoj, for example, right? Employee name called Manoj. So if you click on Manoj, there are a lot of Manojes is available. Emirate, right? So now
Yes.
what is the next classification? Employee based on the ID number, because ID number is a unique identification.
Exactly. Yeah.
ID number is a unique identification which cannot be repetitive.
Mhm.
Why? Because if even in bank account also you can see customer ID number is an auto-generated one. Customer ID number won't
Yes.
be generated manually.
Yes.
Do you understand? Right. That's the reason
Yes.
why some of the transactions, whenever we do, it will always ask us to display the customer ID number, because customer ID number is a auto-generated thing, which cannot be, which won't be overlapped with other, which won't be overlapped with other ID numbers in future. Am I right on? Right.
Yes.
So whatever the relationship we have among these databases, if you want to know about the databases in structure in detail, these ER diagrams we have to create. We have to
Okay.
create different ER diagrams and all. ER diagrams will explain about the entity relationship diagram. This is what it was. Right. So entity relationship diagram is what? This
To
is what
explain
generally.
someone, we draw like these diagrams.
Yeah. So this is all for visualization purpose. This is all.
Okay.
This is for visualization purpose. We are preparing all that. So to have a visualization, for example, if you want to explain something, how do you explain? Right. So you cannot explain on the board, right? Which is not possible, because people right now, people were connected virtually, right? People who are connected virtually in different places, people are working, right? So that if you want to explain the detailed part of the database system, because database system can't be seen outside. You can't see the database outside, isn't it?
Yes.
Database can't be presented outside, because physically you don't see anything, because the result, whatever you receive, is the only thing which explains you. Otherwise, if you don't have any result, you can't do anything. Am I right? So
Mhm.
how the database has connected and how it was restructured and structured, how come we know? There is a visualization process we have to do. That's the reason why in the beginning I have told you there are different languages. Languages means not Java, C, C++, because that is our general understanding. Language is hypertext markup languages. Markup language, not hypertext, markup language. Markup languages where we have to write HTML code. HTML code, for example, you are creating a login page. So how the page looks like, what are the options are available. For that, in
Mhm.
back of it, HTML code we have to write. Point number one. Second, programming language. Programming language to develop a logic for a functionality. 1 plus 2 equal to 3. Or 500 plus 300 equal to 800. How you got this? There is a logic behind developer has written in a form of code. That is point number two. Third is modeling language. Modeling language, yes, sir, right? Because if you want to explain in a diagramical representation and all, either you can create ER diagrams or UML diagrams, wireframes and mockups. All these things comes under visual modeling language, which is all about UML, all that. Next is query language. Query language where you want to extract the queries. For example, you want to download a report. For example, back-end operations of a banking or financial team is working, wherein they want to extract the information from the database. They want to create a report. They want to download a report based on the gender. For example, there is a retail store, right? So in this retail store, they want to identify, they want to see how many people have bought bath soaps in last 1 week. In last 1 week, how many people have bought bath soaps? Point number one. Point number two. In that bath soaps, how many people have bought hammam? Because again, in the brand classification, how many people have bought hammam? So this classification being a business user, whoever the business user you are, and whichever the industry you belongs to, you want to extract the data and you want to create some reports out of it. How do you do it? There are some SQL statements and queries which we have to written in back of it. From there, based on the queries what we have written, extracting the information in a form of reports can be downloaded by the user, whoever the user it could be, and whatever the user data we have taken. That's the reason why data sets I have taken for different things, right? So for salaries, I have taken as separate. For furniture, I have taken as separate, right? So different data sets can be used for different things. Clear to you with?
Yes, sir.
Right? So these ER diagrams and all everything are used to visualize the process of the activity. What is that we are performing? At the same time, these MySQLs and all everything will be used for writing some queries, right? So if you want to create any schemas, right? So all these things, if you want to do, so these things are being used for that purposes. This is what generally these models and all everything are being used. Clear?
Yes.
Understood a bit?
Yes,
So
sir.
this is how it works. And at the same time, these are the common things, right? So what kind of tools, right? So configuration, right? If you want to configure and all everything, so that administrative activities that can be done. That's a different thing. At the same time, if you want to create any kind of model diagrams, or if you want to connect to any kind of databases, because this database connectivities has to be done by the database administrators. Because if you want to connect from external servers, if you want to connect and you need to extract some information where you require some permissions to be made. In between, there is an API has to be written, and these connections and these databases can be extracted from that. That's how generally we do that. So this is how usually this SQL and overall clips, whatever the explanation I have given in overall clips, which usually used in learning. Clear?
Okay, sir. Yeah.
Right. So this is all about. So please go through the video recordings. If you have any questions on this regard, please go and please ask me on Monday. Monday we are going to start the SQL. I'll instruct you how to do it and all everything. I'll instruct you. You do it. Okay. I will instruct from my side. You can do it from your end. Clear a bit?
Okay, sir.
Anything
Got
you'd
it.
like to ask? Any questions on this?
No, for the today, now we have entered in the SQL. So
Because SQL immediately I cannot start because at least one or
yeah,
two basics we have to cover.
things. Yeah, I need
Because
to know that.
people come from, as I told you earlier, people come from different professional backgrounds. You cannot expect that a person coming for SQL knows about IT. You cannot say that.
Yeah.
How can we say, right? So for different reasons required, SQL is required for the people. Even non-IT people also SQL required. Because if they are working, because every organization will have IT department nowadays.
Yes.
Right? So they may have an opportunity to work on IT department where they may require as a part of their job, they may require some queries to be written, SQL queries. That is a basic thing. Even a person who wants to get into data analysis, everyone is required SQL to be known. Unless until if they don't know SQL, what they can do here is that. So it is always better to learn from the basics of SQL, basics of SQL. At the same time, first of all, jargons we have to know. What is schema, right? So all these things, first of all, what is integer? All these things first you have to know. Then it is easy. Otherwise, so what is schema if you don't know, then there is no point in creating a schema.
Okay.
Do you understand? Right? So
Yeah.
creating a schema, you know, right? For example, but unfortunately, you don't know what schema is and for what purpose it is being used. Then how it looks like? It looks very embarrassing, right?
Yes.
Right? So that fundamentals are very important because usually I personally suggest anyone to go with that. Right? What is schema? For what purpose it is being used? So that jargons and terminologies in SQL, if you know, then why it is being used, what exactly it is, and how can we create schema? How are we going to create schemas and all everything next? But prior to that, what is that we required? Why schema? For what purpose? That you have to know. Then how to create schema? That's a different, right or not?
Okay.
So then fundamental knowledge. See, foundations are always important if you're learning something.
Yes.
which most of the people, unfortunately, they ignore most of the times.
Mm.
Not fundamental. No, fundamentals are very important. If you are not strong in fundamentals and platform strongness, then it won't have any, because quality of the strength is required.
Yes.
Okay, right, Abid?
Okay, so I got it.
Okay,
In this one, I got the scenario was equal. From Monday, we are going to
start SQL
do
workbench.
this.
Yes,
Okay.
we
Okay.
directly work on practicals, right? We directly
Mm.
work.
Okay,
But of
sir.
course, I'll tell you how to installation and all everything. I will instruct you based on my
Sure.
instructions. You can follow that. After that,
Sure. Sure.
you can also work practically. Practically, you can also work whenever you get time
Yeah,
based on
yeah.
the
That's
video
what I'm
recording which
looking
will
for.
support.
Whenever I get what I learned from you in this class,
Yes,
after that,
you can do
whenever
it
I got,
immediately. Yes, yes.
yeah.
Then you'll learn more. Okay,
Uh,
right, Abid? See you there.
okay, sir.
Bye.
Thank you so
Bye.
much, and see you on Monday,
Thank
same
you.
timing.
Bye. Bye.
Can you please send me yesterday and today's recording on my
I will
mail?
do that. Today I will do it. Okay.
Okay. Thank
Thank
you.
you.